Now do it the way I'm showing you here. Breathe out and tighten down. Contract your abs forcefully. Be conscious of how hard you're contracting your abs. Make sure that you've expelled the air.
Yeah, don't do that. What's up guys, Enkiri here, and today we're going to talk about breathing and bracing during the squat. Based on some of the debate that you can find on the internet, you would think that this was a highly contentious subject. But in reality, amongst the world's most knowledgeable coaches and strongest men, there's little debate to be had, and rather what you find instead is a vast consensus about how to go about breathing and bracing properly during heavy squatting, both in order to maximize the safety of your spine and to minimize any energy leaks that may occur through the trunk, thereby dampening force transmission from the lower body through to the barbell and ultimately hindering your gains in the long term. And this information will hold true for absolutely everybody who has any vested interest in using the squat during their training, whether they're a strength athlete who's using the lift for competitive purposes, a bodybuilder who's using it to maximize leg hypertrophy, a regular athlete who's using it to increase general strength and power, or just an average fitness enthusiast who's likely striving for some combination of all of these things. So in the interest of doing our best to challenge a piece of widely disseminated yet highly questionable advice, today we'll take a look at two opposing viewpoints when it comes to breathing and bracing in order to maximize tension during the squat. Now before we jump too deep into this, I'm going to preface the whole thing with just a quick little disclaimer, because we are going to be discussing the Valsalva maneuver today. And I'm not a doctor. There are some people in the medical community who believe that the Valsalva maneuver, primarily due to large spikes in blood pressure during its performance, is dangerous and should be avoided during weight training. Never mind the fact that the Valsalva is an intuitive aspect of lifting pretty much anything and is simply a natural consequence of living your daily life, such as, for example, when taking a shit. But never mind all that. Some people have made the claim that the maneuver is dangerous and should be avoided. So here's my obligatory disclaimer as it pertains to the Valsalva maneuver and weight training. Do so at your own risk. However, if you want to learn what the available data actually says about the Valsalva maneuver and learn way more than you ever thought there was to learn about the Valsalva during weight training and its associated risks, then I'll point you to this fantastic and super in-depth article written by Dr. Jonathan Sullivan on the Starting Strength website, simply titled The Valsalva and Stroke. You should definitely check it out because it's certainly worth the read, especially if someone has convinced you that the Valsalva should be avoided during weight training for safety reasons in particular. Now with that out of the way, let's get to the main topic of the day. How should you breathe during the squat in order to properly brace your core, thereby minimizing energy leaks, maximizing performance, and keeping the spine safe during heavy lifting? According to the godfather of YouTube fitness, you should do this.
Now do it the way I'm showing you here. Breathe out and tighten down. Contract your abs forcefully. Be conscious of how hard you're contracting your abs. Make sure that you've expelled the air and that you're tightening up from the inside out. You're creating that intra-abdominal pressure, but by doing so, by tightening down the muscle, not just blowing out, okay? There's a big difference. And when we do that, now go down into your squat. You should notice an immediate difference. You should feel much more stable. The squat should feel much lighter.
The problem with this advice is that not only is it counterintuitive, but it also goes against pretty much everything we know about effective bracing during squatting. It overemphasizes the abdominal muscles at the expense of the spinal erectors, and it drastically decreases your ability to create intra-abdominal pressure, thereby drastically decreasing overall torso rigidity. Contrary to what this advice implies, it's not abdominal strength that creates torso rigidity, but rather it's actually the combination of isometric spinal erector strength and intra-abdominal pressure working in concert with each other that creates maximal torso rigidity during the squat and therefore the greatest bracing effect. Torso rigidity is what supports the spine, prevents the vertebral segments from shifting under load, protects the vertebrae from the massive shear forces involved during this exercise, and leads to the greatest amount of force transfer from the legs and hips and into the barbell. But you know what? Don't just take my word for it. When it comes to the squat specifically, there are an abundance of coaches and athletes disseminating absolutely fantastic information and teaching you pretty much all there is to know about how to brace your core to keep your spine safe and build maximal strength and power with the barbell squat. So let's just hear what some of these guys have to say about it.
Now do it the way I'm showing you here. Breathe out and tighten down. Contract your abs forcefully. Make sure that you've expelled the air and that you're tightening up from the inside out. You're creating that intra-abdominal pressure. By doing so, by tightening down the muscle. Now, you want to focus on bearing down, tighten up those abs as hard as you can, and then execute the rep. When we do that, now go down into your squat. You should notice an immediate difference. You should feel much more stable. The squat should feel much lighter.
I want you to think of your trunk exactly like you would this can. From your armpits down to your waistline is a cylinder, just like this can. So you take an unopened can and you squeeze it, you'll get a little bit of flex, but not much, because there's too much pressure inside. You open up the lid and now you can crush the can. Now you can increase the strength of the can by shaking it up so that the carbonation gets active and it releases gases, further pushing outward on the outside integrity of the can. Your insides are no different. You can do the exact same thing during a squat or a deadlift or anything. Now, if you grab anyone off the street and you tell them to flex their abs, what you will get is them crunching down and sucking their belly in like they're gonna take a selfie. Number one, don't do that. Those pictures don't go away. And number two, you're denting your can, which is hurting the integrity.
Breathe out and tighten down. Contract your abs forcefully. Be conscious of how hard you're contracting your abs.
If you're under the bar with a heavy squat and you flex your abs and they crunch in, your can becomes dented. A dented can is not strong. Your core is not strong that way. You need to change that.
Breathe out and tighten down. Contract your abs forcefully.
Your can becomes dented. A dented can is not strong. Your core is not strong that way.
You want to focus on bearing down, tighten up those abs as hard as you can, and then execute the rep.
A dented can is not strong. Your core is not strong that way.
The Valsalva maneuver is where you inhale into your belly, you brace down, and you push that intra-abdominal pressure against your stomach, your sides, and even your low back. And this is your support system for keeping your torso upright as you squat or deadlift or do anything heavy. Imagine that you had an inner tube around your waist, and that inner tube was your support for keeping your torso up. It makes no sense to deflate the inner tube at the bottom of the squat.
Breathe out and tighten down.
So, at the top of the squat, take a big breath in.
Make sure that you've expelled the air.
Squat down, stand all the way up while holding your breath. You can let your air out towards the very top after the top sticking point of the squat.
I'm going to take big air in through the nose and mouth, filling up as much air pressure as possible.
Breathe out and tighten down.
So our ultimate goal is to create 360 degrees of pressure, circumferential expansion.
Make sure that you've expelled the air.
But if you were to look at the world's greatest squatters, you're going to see people with generally larger waists. So trying to maximize your waist size through your breathing pattern is going to be critical.
I want you to think about filling up your belly with air and then take in more air, filling up your obliques, filling up your lower back, your lower lumbar region. Get a 360-degree balloon, like you're filling up that can. You want a full cylinder. It's just like taking a can, shaking it up so the carbonation is inside, and then hold it. You should be holding your breath for the majority of your lift.
Now, if you take a breath, and this time, think about expanding your stomach forward and also your ribs to the side. So take a big breath, hands right here, and try this with me. And if you expand forward and to the side, your big breath just expanded your intra-abdominal cavity. Now, when we couple that with a hard brace, like you're about to get jacked right in the stomach, so breathe and then brace, tighten up. You should feel stiffness here, stiffness in the side of your core. What that's doing is it's then increasing the pressure of that area. You're increasing your IAP, or intra-abdominal cavity pressure. And that stabilizes your core much more than just bracing your core alone.
Breathe out and tighten down.
Now, the more pressure you have in that core, like a cylinder being very, very stiff,
Make sure that you've expelled the air.
it's going to allow you to drive that much more power into your body, which means more power into your lifts.
Here's the thing, if exhaling before initiating a squat actually improved performance, either transiently or in the long run, you could bet your bottom freaking dollar that guys like Ray Williams or Eddie Hall or anyone competitive would have picked up on that by now and would have implemented it into their own training. Even if it only gave them 10 more pounds or 1 more rep, they would still do it, because even those minuscule increases would mean new world records and pushing the limits of the human body even farther than before. But they don't breathe out before squatting. None of them do. Instead, down to the very last competitor, they all breathe in, into the diaphragm prior to initiating their descent, and they hold that breath until they break the sticking point of the lift. Maybe there's a reason for that. Maybe these incredibly strong men with their thousands upon thousands of hours of collective experience have already figured out the optimal breathing and bracing pattern for maximizing squat performance. And there is no counterintuitive secret trick to it that everybody else is somehow missing. Anyway, I think I've made my point. But hey, if you enjoyed the video, be sure to throw it a like and give it a share. And maybe together we can save a few Athlean-X fans from this dubious piece of advice. Keep training hard, and I'll catch you guys next time.